Hello everyone, and welcome to the presentation on evaluation and ethical arguments. There are two kinds of evaluation arguments, categorical and ethical. When we are looking at a categorical evaluation, we ask the question, is this something a good member of its class? Is this thing a good member of its class? So it is evaluating the qualities of a member compared to its class. So an example of this would be, is President Biden a good leader? So the writer determines the extent to which a given something possesses the qualities or standards of its categories or class. So what are the traits of good leaders? Now, when we are looking at ethical evaluations, we ask the question, is this action right or wrong? So it evaluates a given act from an ethical or moral perspective. So was it right or wrong to drop atomic bombs on Hiroshima during World War II? So in this case, the writer evaluates a given act from the perspective of some system of morality or ethics. So it begins with a claim. In categorical evaluation, we are trying to determine if something is good for what it is or what it does. So a lot of the times the claim with reasons framework is set up as this thing, phenomenon, is or is not a good member of its class because it meets or fails to meet criteria A, B, C. So we actually refer to this as a claim criteria match. So let's look at an example using the topic of burglars to evaluate. Categorically, we would evaluate the quality of burglar one is. So we would ask, how good is he or she at being a burglar? We would draw the analysis by evaluating their work. Have they gotten caught in the act? Did they bring adequate rewards? Have they left evidence before? Is their identity sealed? If they bring back rewards without getting caught, they are a good burglar. If they get caught or interrupted in the process, they are not. Now, to look at this from an ethical perspective, we would say, is it wrong for such a class to exist? Since burglars steal from people and damage property, it's safe to conclude that it is wrong for such a class to exist. Burglars are unethical people. So, taking a closer look at the three parts, claim, criteria, and match. An example could be used dealing with fracking. Is fracking a good means for extracting natural gas from shale formations? Someone in support of fracking might say yes, it is technologically efficient at extracting huge supplies of otherwise untappable natural gas. It's cost effective, that would be our criteria. Match, it is environmentally safe. So you always want to begin by placing the smallest relevant category, so you don't compare apples to oranges. Then you develop your criteria for your evaluation based on the purpose or function of the category, hence cost effective, and then the weight of the criteria. So that is the process that you use to create your argument. You would basically follow the steps in this order, and then you would always finish with using evidence to show whether or not the thing meets the criteria. And in this case, you would, of course, follow the STAR procedure for evidence. The key to a successful match argument is to use sufficient examples and other evidence to show how your contested phenomenon meets or does not meet each of your criteria. So the evidence definitely plays a huge part in this type of argument. So how would you organize an argument like this? Well, first you would have to determine what you are evaluating. Then you would develop a thesis statement. And then from there, you would need to determine what specific criteria you are using to evaluate. So, for example, you would never judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree. Then you would need to find credible evidence to support your stance on the subject using STAR. Now that you have all the pieces, introduce your evaluation and put it on a nice bow at the end. I found it hard to write intros for things that don't exist yet. So let's look at an example. You would start by evaluating organ donations. We will evaluate the topic in both a categorical and ethical way. Categorically, doctors have to evaluate whether the organ is good or not. So, to classify an organ in its simplest form, we would ask a question like, what is the organ donor's health? Are they compatible with the recipient? If the organ is healthy and compatible, then it is deemed good. Remember, categorical arguments depend on good or bad. Now, if we were to look at this ethically speaking, we're going to be looking at it from right or wrong. So we could ask something like, is selling organs ethical or not? And develop questions and criteria that would assist us in answering that question. So using the evidence of nearly 117,000 patients in the US need transplant organs, we conclude that it's ethical to supply these necessary patients with transplants in order for them to live. Here is a group or individual activity. If you want to complete this for your homework, it is posted in Blackboard. You are to develop a frame for an ethical argument, either based on principles, consequences, or both, for or against, so you choose your side, any two of the following actions. You can also use the capital punishment model in the textbook as a guide. So again, you're only choosing two for your assignment. You have eating meat, using public transportation instead of owning a car, legalizing assisted suicide for the terminally ill, selling human organs, and allowing concealed weapons on college campuses. So please let me know if you have any questions on how to develop a evaluation or ethical argument.